Okay, so this video will be talking about finding the values of x and y that make each equation true. So it says find the values of x and y that make each equation true. Okay. So when we talk about finding the values of x and y that make each equation true, we actually talk about setting our real parts. We talk about setting our real parts. Let's get this out of here. 1 minute here. We talk about setting our real parts, which is a, equal to each other, and our imaginary parts equal to each other. Okay? So let's take a look at how this would look. If we have the equation, let's start off with an example here. If we have 9x, plus y times I minus 5 is equal to minus 12i plus 4. The first thing that we want to do here is we want to identify our real numbers, which will be 9x minus 5x and plus 4. We want to identify these numbers because we're going to set them equal to our imaginary numbers, which are these here. Okay? We're going to set them equal to each other. So let's go ahead and get that started. If we take 9x and we have that minus 5 is equal to the only real part that's over here, which is plus 4. We set that equal to that. Okay, and on this side, what we'll have is we'll have our imaginary numbers equal to each other. So our imaginary part, so y times I is equal to a minus 12i. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the solving of these two equations that we have formed here. Okay, well, this is just a regular two-step equation, so all we have to do here is add 5 to both sides, which we do add 5, add 5. Then these will cancel, of course, leaving me with 9x is equal to 9. We divide both sides by 9. We have x is equal to 1. Okay? Now, the same thing goes for the imaginary numbers here. We want to get the variable y by itself because it says solve for x and y. So we want to get the y by itself, so we must divide by I because that's keeping y from being alone. So those i's cancel, and I'm left with y is equal to, because those i's cancel, so I'm left with y is equal to a minus 12. Okay? So these would be the values of x and y that make this equation here true, with y is equal to negative 12 and x is equal to 1. Let's look at some notes here really quick. Okay, let's look at our first note. It says, in order for a number to be imaginary, it must contain the imaginary number I. Okay? So it must contain the imaginary number I where I is equal to the square root of negative 1. Okay? Because you wouldn't want to get I confused with a variable. So in order for it to be imaginary, it has to contain this variable. It has to contain this imaginary number I, which is the square root of negative 1. Okay? So like this here, this contains the imaginary number I. And this contains the imaginary number I. Okay? So let's go ahead and get started with another example. Let's take, okay, here's a good example here. Let's erase this first. Okay, let's look at this example. It says 5, let's write this, give me a minute. It says 5 times x minus 1 plus 3 times y multiplied by I is equal to a minus 15i minus 20. Okay? So what we'd actually do here, let's identify our real, which would be this here, and this here, because we see no I as an imaginary number at the end, okay? And let's identify our imaginary. We have this here, and we have this here, okay? So basically we're saying yellow equal to yellow and purple equal to purple, okay? So it'd be 5 multiplied times x minus 1, right? And this be 5 times x minus 1 is equal to a minus 20, okay? Now, once we have that down pat, let's get the purple. It'll be 3y, because you distribute that I, so it'll be 3yi is equal to a minus 15i, okay? Now, let's go ahead and get started on the solving of this equation for x, okay? Now, we can divide both sides by 5 in order to get rid of 5 on this side, and I'm left with x minus 1 is equal to negative 20 divided by 5 will give me a minus 4. Right, because 5 times negative 4 will give me a minus 20. Okay, then I can add 1 to both sides here. Then I'm left with x is equal to a minus 3. Okay, perfect. So I found my value of x. Now let's identify my value of y, which is in purple. Well, we want y by itself, so what's keeping y from being alone? It's this I and this 3. So why not divide by 3i? Since it's keeping it from being alone, the I from being alone, let's go ahead and divide both sides by 3i, okay? And this I would cancel with that I, and those 3's would cancel, leaving me with y is equal to, well, since those i's cancel, negative 15 divided by 3 will be a minus 5, okay? So I have y is equal to minus 5, and x is equal to a minus 3, okay? So what you want to look at when you're dealing with these, you want to make sure you remember this rule here. In order for it to be imaginary, it must contain the imaginary part of it. You know, the I, the imaginary number I, must contain that, okay? So I don't have any more examples of these right now. So what we'll do is, this is not a very big part. You know, this is just a basic idea, and I'm pretty sure you guys get the idea of this. Setting your real, this is what this says. It says to set your real equal to your real. The real should be equal to the real, and then the imaginary should be equal to the imaginary. It should be equal to the imaginary. That's the basic idea of finding the values of x and y that make this equation true.